This is the Veteran Woman Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to empowering, inspiring, and encouraging veteran women to overcome their struggles and celebrate their successes. Now, here's your host, the one and only Airial Renault.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know I love all of my listeners out there, and I love welcoming you to another episode of the Veteran Woman Podcast. And as you know, I am your host, Airial Renault. Thank you so much for listening. So let me ask you a question. Do you need a pain-free attitude adjustment? And even if you don't think so, you probably do, because we all could use some sort of attitude adjustment. And good thing is, this episode, I'm talking to Stephen Shaner. I hope I said his name right.
You did.
Okay. Stephen Shaner, the Attitude Chiropractor himself. And I see that he has a few tricks up his sleeve, because he is a magician as well, and a veteran. What? Correct?
Correct.
And what branch did you serve in?
I served in the U.S. Army.
Oh, Army. So
yes.
Without further ado, I bring you Stephen Shaner. Welcome.
Good evening, Airial, and hello to all your guests. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, where do we begin? Okay, so since it's the Veteran Woman Podcast, let's talk about your military service.
Okay, I went in the Army right out of high school. I graduated, and I actually joined on the delayed entry program. I joined when I was 17. About a month before I was due to report, my recruiter called me, and he said, "We need to figure out what to do with you." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, what job?" And I thought, "I'm just going to be a soldier, right?" He said, "No, there's lots of jobs." So
Nope.
He came up, and he had a notebook, just pages and pages of all the different jobs in the Army. I got as far as bandsman. And I said, "That sounds like fun." He said, "You want to play in the Army band?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like to do that." So I auditioned, and I ended up going in the Army, and I played trumpet and guitar in the Army band. Had basic training at Fort Bliss, and then went to Norfolk, and I went through the Navy School of Music for 6 months, graduated from there, and then I ended up in the 1st Cavalry Division band at Fort Hood, Texas, and was there for quite a while. So.
That sounds very interesting. And how long were you in?
I was in 3 years, just over about 3.5 years active. And then the inactive reserve got me a total of 6 years.
So do you still play trumpet, guitar?
I play guitar every now and then. I play a little bit of piano, but I write a lot of music. I've been choir director in church, and I write a lot of choir music. So that's kind of where I'm using those skills nowadays.
Okay. And so looking back at your military career, what were some ups and some downs?
Not too many downs. I mean, you talk about a fun job, but probably, I was your typical 18-year-old male right out of high school, thought I knew everything, and basic training cured me of that very quickly. I did more push-ups my first 3 days than I did the rest of my career, but but it really changed my life. I mean, just taught me about being responsible and being accountable and doing what's right and those types of things. So I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. It was a wonderful experience.
It's definitely something to be proud of.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your service as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So how did you get into all that you do now?
It's a long story. I've had a lot of different jobs. I got out of the Army. I worked in the copper mines for a while. I was a full-time firefighter, EMT. I was an air traffic controller.
Wow.
I've worked at Area 51 and the Nevada test site for a while.
Wait a minute. Area 51.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
Anything you want to know. So they told me I had to keep quiet for 5 years, and then after that I could pretty much say whatever I wanted to.
Only 5?
Yes, I was surprised.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised it wasn't like 20 or 60
I know.
or...
It's not what you think it is, though. There's nothing going on out there. Just a lot of aircraft testing and that type of stuff. So,
okay. So no UFOs?
No. If there's any flying saucers out there, they're ones we built. So. And then I worked as a professional magician. I graduated from the Chavez College of Magic, and I worked as a professional magician for a while, and I still do that. I have another full-time job now doing computer-type work, but I still do the magic. Do a lot of charity shows for nonprofit organizations. I've teamed up with another magician, and we have the awesome and amazing Comedy Magic team. And we go around, do a lot of charity shows. We're performing this Thursday night at a radio club here in Duluth, Minnesota. And then next Monday, we're performing at one of the federal prisons here in northern Minnesota. So.
Wow, a jack of all trades.
I've been around, done a lot.
How old are you, if I may ask?
I am 59.
Wow.
So.
And you've accomplished all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's life.
It is.
I remember I had an English teacher who I told I wanted to be a nurse and a psychiatrist. And she told me that I needed to pick one, even though I'm not in either of those professions. And I remember thinking, like, why is she trying to limit me to one career? Because we have a lifetime to go through. We can go through so many different careers, and that's what people do in reality.
Sure. And it is. You go through so many different careers, but you can take skills from one. I mean, being an air traffic controller and learning those organizational skills can be used in any aspect of your life. So,
So how did you get into speaking and presenting?
It's something I had always been interested in. I'll tell you a little story. I worked at General Electric for a while when I was in Florida, and my wife and I this was after I was a firefighter, so we were trying to get into General Electric and teach CPR, first aid, and those types of things. And CPR was still fairly new. This was early 80s. So the general manager of the plant wasn't real sure how their people would benefit from something like this. So we finally agreed that my wife, Nancy, and I would come in on a Saturday. We would teach the class to anybody that wanted to come on their own time. So we did the class. We had 8 students. The following Monday night, one of the people who was in the class actually saved one of his employees.
Wow.
He was a second shift supervisor, and he did the Heimlich. She was choking. He did the Heimlich and saved her life. They decided to give him what they called a VIP award, a very important person award. It was a big deal at General Electric. So the day they were giving him the award, it was kind of a luncheon thing. The general manager called me and says, since you taught this class, why don't you plan to come to the lunch? I said, sure. So as I got there, then she said, well, why don't you present the award? Sadly, my presentation of the award was to basically walk over, grab his new badge that had the VIP emblem on it, hand it to him, and then walk over and sit down. I did not have those skills. Doing magic, it wasn't that I was afraid to be up in front of people. I've done magic for 5,000 plus audiences, but I did not have those skills. So
you had to start from somewhere.
Yeah, so I've been interested. I became a facilitator of Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits when I started working for this company 18 years ago. And I've got a 15-year career now in Toastmasters. I've served in some of the higher levels within that organization. And I've just really taken every opportunity I can to get up in front of an audience and speak, and what a difference. So you take that experience, and then here about a year ago, I was down in the Twin Cities where my boss is, and we were going to a leadership symposium. And we walked in, and this young lady came up, and she looked at me, and she started crying. And then she just grabbed a hold of me and just gave me this giant hug. And I'm looking at my boss, and he's got this question on his face, like, and I'm looking back at it, I'm going, I don't know what's going on. So she finally calmed down. She took a step back, and as she was wiping her eyes, and she looked up, she said, do you remember me? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. She says, you spoke at our office, and she said the office about a year ago. I said, yes, I remember that. She said, I was the very pregnant lady in the room. I was like, okay, yep, I remember you now. And then she said, I'll struggle with this a little here, but she said, I had a very difficult pregnancy, and your words helped me get through that.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's kind of that speaking career. And at that point, I'd gotten some great feedback and stuff before. At that point, I realized, I may speak to an audience of 200, but I may only influence one. But that's worth continuing to do this day in and day out.
Definitely. So what has been your favorite career or job?
Each of them, you think about being a firefighter or EMT, there's certainly some ups and downs to that job. So that was great. Being an air traffic controller was great. Doing the magic was great, but I got burned out.
Really? Yeah,
I was in LA, and I was doing just so many shows. I was never home, and it got to be not fun. So at that point, I sold the business and got back into computers. But now like I said, I do them mostly for charity, and it's just a lot more fun now. And that's the way magic really should be. The job I have now, I've been with the company I'm with 18 years, and I now manage one of their facilities, and I have about 20 people. I've had as many as 25 people working in that facility with me. And working with them is just such a joy. They're an incredible group of people. We have an annual engagement survey every year where they measure how engaged people are. And this team comes in 98 and 99% engaged every year. And watching 20 people that are 99% engaged work is just a real joy. And it's one of those things where as a leader, what do we want to create? More leaders. And it's wonderful because I can sit back and certainly there are some things when I need to get involved and do those things. But most of the time I can sit back and someone will come in and ask a question, what should we do here? And I'll just, you go decide. Knowing full well they may not make the right decision, but they will learn more from that than me telling them what to do all the time. And I think that is really the essence of leadership. And I think Stephen Covey said it best, is leadership is communicating to people their worth and potential so clearly that they come to see it in themselves. And I love that quote. He has lots of quotes I love, but that's one of my favorites.
So can you tell us about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People for those of us who have not read the book yet? And don't fuss. Please do not fuss.
If you haven't, read it. The habits are wonderful. There's 7 habits, and they are an inside-out approach to being effective. And we use the word effective for people. We use the word efficient for machines and processes. And it's a very important distinction. You certainly don't want to go to your people and say, hey, you need to be more efficient. We want our people to be effective. So habit one.
I never made that distinguisher. Is that a word?
Yeah, it is. It is now.
It is right now.
I like it.
I never realized that that's different. Because I've heard, us refer to people as being efficient.
Yeah. So, and if I came to you and said, hey, you need to be more efficient, how do you feel? But if I came to you and said, hey, I'd like to help you be more effective, it's a much better, much cleaner yes. So habit 1 is be proactive, and that has everything to do, and that's kind of what I've kind of steered my life on and where I've learned so much from, and that has everything to do with we have choices. Being proactive is that we can take a step back. As humans, we can do that, and we can take a step back and make a better decision. We're the only animal that can do that. If you are out walking through the woods and you come between mama bear and baby bear, she's going to react. She's not going to be proactive. She's not going to sit back and go, well, this guy's probably just enjoying the hike and the sunshine and the fresh air. No, she's going to react. And we do that. We react. A certain stimulus hits us and we react the same way every single time, don't we? Whereas we don't have to. We can take a step back. We can ask different questions. We can look at it differently. We can use our imagination and all those things that we have, and we can choose. And it's choosing our response. We have the ability to respond to whatever stimulus is. That's that responsibility. We have the ability to respond, and it's a great one. And then number 2. So, and again, it's you. So the first 3 habits are all about within. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind, and it's all about having a personal mission statement. And it's wonderful having a personal mission statement because it really clarifies. Anytime I come up with a major decision I have to make, I can go back to that mission statement. Okay, how does this decision affect this? Or better yet, how does this mission statement affect this decision? And we have, my wife and I have a family mission statement. What's our family about? So as we're going through life, we can make better decisions based on that as well. That is also a great habit. Habit 3 is begin with the end in mind. Sorry. Habit 2 is that begin with the end in mind, and that's your personal mission. Habit 3 is put first things first. It's time management, Covey style, or better yet, relationship management. Managing time is difficult, and I think sometimes impossible. We all have the same amount of time in every single day. So what we do here is we look at all the different roles that we have in our life. And if you think about those roles, every one of those roles has a relationship with it. So it's more relationship management. So every week I'll take a look at, okay, what roles am I going to be playing this year? Well, I'm a manager. Well, I'm a person. I'm an individual. I am a spouse. Maybe I've got a Toastmasters role this week, whatever it may be. And I'll take a look at each of those roles and I'll ask the question, what's the most important thing I can do for my wife this week? And I'll write that down. And maybe it's one thing, maybe it's 2 things, but then I get that on the calendar first. Those are the big things. Those are the important things. What's the most important thing I need to do as a manager this week? What's the most important thing I need to do for my speaking business this week, or whatever it is? And I plug those in first. So it really is, in every one of those roles, there's a relationship associated with it. And we get those on the calendar first because those are the important things. So that's habit 3. And when you master those 3, you win the public or the private victory. It's you. It's all about you. Then you go on to habit 4, 5, and 6. Habit 4 is think win-win. And it's, can you always get win-win? No. But you always want to think win-win. So let's say you and I have a disagreement on something. It is like, you think this way, I think this way. How would you feel if we sat down and we worked together and we came up with something that is better than your idea and my idea? Do you feel threatened with that?
That is high-level thinking.
Yeah, and it is. It's very high-level thinking, and it's not easy. It really takes some work, and if you master those first 3 skills, it makes it easier. But you wouldn't be threatened by that. You say, yeah, I'd like to do that. Will we get there? Maybe, maybe not, but we're thinking that way. We want to achieve something that's greater than what I have and what you have. Then we sit back and seek first to understand, then to be understood, which is habit 5. So I'm going to basically listen to your side of the story and not just hear the words. I want to feel the emotions, everything that's connected with that. I want to feel your passion. And when I can repeat that back to you with the same emotions, the same feelings, the same power, I don't necessarily agree with you, but I certainly understand you in a better way. And it's that whole empathic listening thing. And then you would do the same with me. You would listen to my side, and then when you can repeat it, then the natural result of those two is habit 6, which is synergy. So when we get to synergy, that's creating that third alternative. In fact, it's such an important concept that Stephen Covey wrote a book called The Third Alternative. And imagine, corporations, government, if they were doing these types of things, what they could accomplish, so.
But we're so busy, just busy. That we forget about the people.
Exactly. We really do.
The people in a relationship.
Yeah. And then habit 7 is sharpen the saw. And that's where we take a few minutes every day and we think about and we ask those questions. Like, what's the most important thing I can do for my mental, my physical, my spiritual, my physical, and those things? And we also get those on the calendar too. So what can I do in those 4 areas of my life? And those are really important, but they get neglected. We don't think about those much. So those are real high level what the 7 habits are. And the book came out in 1989. It's certainly changed my life, and a lot of where I've came from has come out of that book. If I could share another story, years ago I worked for a gentleman who took credit for everything I did. And he wasn't shy about it. I could be sitting in a meeting right next to him. He'd go, "Yep, I did this, and I set this up, and I did this."
Oh, wow.
And then one day he came over and he handed me his resume, and his new resume, and I'm looking at it, and I was like, I could put my name right at the top of this, because it looks like my resume. And the things, and it was that whole reaction thing, because I was frustrated. I was angry. I just was all these negative emotions all the time. And I was a very positive person, but I really struggled with this. So I had pretty much decided it was time for me to move on. Before I did, I went for a hike in the wilderness for a few days, took some food. I took Stephen Covey's book. I took Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. I took my scriptures, and I took my journal. And I just went out in the middle of nowhere for a few days. So I'm reading Stephen Covey, and he's telling me, if you're having a bad day, it's because you decided to. Not what I wanted to hear at that time. And I'm reading Tony Robbins, and he's saying, frustration is a good thing. Also not what I wanted to hear at the time. So then I started, reading my scriptures, writing my journal, reading some more. But I came out of that weekend with some of the greatest breakthroughs I've ever had in my life. Number one was, and I've lived by this in my work and in my life ever since, and it was this: so what? So what if he takes credit for what I do? My job is to make him look good.
That's tough. It's
tough, but I turned it back on me. Because guess what? No matter what I do, he's going to take credit for it. So what? Let him take it. And he continued to do that. I didn't care. I was in a completely different place. So I focused on myself. It's that whole internal focusing, the thing I can control. The only thing I can control that I really have any influence over is myself. Okay. And as we focus on ourselves, then our influence grows. Because then other people will ask you, those types of things, and your responsibilities will grow as well. So that was huge. Now that I manage people, I've turned it around. So, and my boss knows, and I've told him, I says, my goal is to make you look good, period. Okay, will I always accomplish that? No, but he knows that is my goal, and he appreciates that. And now that I'm also managing people, the second part of that is my job is to help them be successful and to help make them look good. So I've added to that when I got into the manager role 12 years ago, and it was life-changing.
So when do you have a chance to look good?
Doesn't matter. It's not about me.
That sounds very woo-woo.
It really, and it is a great distinction I learned later. But the other things that came out of that weekend is the attitude matters. And I kind of knew that, but I really realized that, and that's how I came up with the Awesome Attitude, LLC is my business. And I found that I was, and the feedback I was getting, that I was very good at helping people change their attitude in a non-threatening way. And that's how I came up with the pain-free attitude adjustments and that whole thing. So attitude does matter, and we can make those choices and those decisions in any situation, and we can decide to be positive. The third thing I came up with was that vocabulary matters. I listen to people all the time. I listen to the words they use and the attitude they use, and not only how it affects them, but how it affects the people around them as well. And it's eye-opening, because when you use certain words, like if I say, hey, this is devastating. what am I going to experience? Devastation. Yeah, I'm going to experience devastation. Whatever that means to me, if I use that word, that's what I will experience. If I say, oh, this is a nightmare, well, whatever that word means to me, that's what I'm going to experience. And we hear those words all the time in the news and in politics and everything, where people are just throwing these negative words at each other, and that's what everybody experiences, and it's too bad. So I was put to the test here. It's been a few years ago. I was out running some errands for work one day, and I got rear-ended. I was coming to a red light, and the car hit me from behind. So I was sitting there, and first thing I did was, okay, I took inventory, and I was like, okay, I'm okay. And then I sat there for a minute, and of course, the first things you feel are anger, frustration. And I went, all right, if I really have a choice here, and I think I do, how can I make this a positive experience for everyone involved? So I asked a different question. So asking different questions gets us different results. So I decided that's my goal. I want to make this a fun experience for everybody involved. So I got out and I walked back. I didn't even look at the back of my van. And I walked to the car, and the girl driving, she was about 18. She rolled down her window. And,
oh, goodness.
And I asked her, I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm okay. And she was with her sister, who was about 16. And I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm okay too. I said, okay. So because the front of their car was smashed, their doors wouldn't open, I finally got the passenger door pried open and got them out. So I called 911, and I said, yeah, traffic accident. Here's the location. No injuries. They said, okay, we'll send a patrol car over. So we were talking, and she apologized. She said, I'm so sorry. I was distracted. And I said, look, I know you didn't get up this morning and decide, you know what? I think I'm going to go hit some old man on the highway today. I said, we're fine. Accidents happen. And I smiled. And so it was a positive atmosphere. So a little later, the police car showed up, and I should probably explain what I was wearing at this point. I was wearing tan khaki pants. I had a bright orange Hawaiian shirt, and I had my orange Crocs on. So that's what I was wearing. So this lady police officer gets out of her car, and she walks up, and we're smiling, and we're laughing, and we're having a good time. And she walks up into this positive atmosphere, which she probably wasn't expecting.
Right.
And she says, what happened? So the girl said, I got distracted, and I hit him. She looks at me, and she said, you deserve to get hit dressed like that. So now 4 of us were having a good time in this situation that would normally be, very negative, lots of anger, and it worked because I chose to make it a different situation.
And it was like a domino effect too.
It really was. And we can do that in any situation. So it was wonderful. So the decisions we make, and when I speak at the prisons, I talk about this a lot. We are where we are in our life today because of the decisions we've made. Okay, where we're going to be tomorrow is based on the decisions we make today. Because you made this decision yesterday doesn't, you don't need to make those same decisions moving forward. You can make different decisions. How? You ask different questions. When you ask different questions, you get different answers. And those types of things have been life-changing for me.
So what does attitude mean to you? How do you define attitude?
To me, it's how we act. It's the energy, it's the passion, it's those things that we bring into our lives every day. Okay, so if I come into the work every day passionate and happy and energetic, how is that going to affect me? Okay, but more importantly, how's it going to affect those people around me?
Okay, it just sounds too good to be true.
It's not easy.
I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Please do.
So the days that it's not easy, the days when you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, how do you make that difficult choice to not be negative?
For me, and at the beginning, I struggle with that.
And that actually sounds bad that when I asked it like that, I was like, wow.
Not at all. And gee, I've heard this before. So it's, for me, and it was a struggle at first. I mean, try to do it for 30 days. Get up every day and say, you know what, I'm going to have an awesome day today. It's not easy. But as you start to do it more and more, then you start to say, you know what, I like this me better than I like the negative me. Okay. And then it's a matter of, I wake up at 4 a.m. every morning. I don't use an alarm clock. It's amazing to me because I'll wake up and I'll look over and it's 4 a.m. right on the dot. Unless it's the time change and it's 3 a.m. on the dot, and I struggle with that one. When I lose the hour, I do fine. When I gain that extra hour, boy, it's a mess for a couple of weeks. But I just decide to get up, and if I'm laying there and it's like, something's bothering me, then I'll pick a song, something that energizes me and makes me happy, and I'll think about that and I'll play that in my head, and it kind of gets the blood going. And it's like, okay, this makes me feel good. And then I get up and I say, let's do some good today. And it's a decision. It's always a decision. And it comes back to that habit one, being proactive. In every single situation, you can decide. So every day, and now it's very seldom where you see me in a bad mood over anything. And people comment at this work, you never get riled about anything. And of course I'll say, I worked as a full-time firefighter in a one-man station. I was pulling up to a burning house at 2 o'clock in the morning with people trapped on the second floor, and you're by yourself. That's stressful. So in this job, there's some things going on, but
perspective.
It is. It really is perspective, but it's a choice. So every morning when I get up, and there may be days when, I'm tired, I don't feel good, but you know what? I'm going to make this a great day anyway. Not only for me, but those people around me. And I hear every single day the appreciation from people.
And I can feel it, even though we're not physically in the same location. I'm looking at you on Skype, and you're glowing. I can see, I can feel that energy. It's just amazing to me. And it's a Monday. We're recording this on a Monday, and it's late. So just to still have that amount of energy is amazing to me.
Yeah. So I'll tell you another story. This was several years ago, but I would get on the elevator, and quite frequently I'd run into this other young lady, and we'd ride the elevator up. And on Mondays, I'd say, how are you today? And she'd go, it's Monday. Right? And I'd look at her and say, so why are you choosing to have a bad day just because it's Monday? And she'd go, oh, I'm not. Well, I am. No. Then she wouldn't say anything and she'd walk off. So a couple of days later, on Wednesday, she's a little more upbeat, hey, how are you today? So I'm doing pretty good. But Friday, man, she was energetic, passionate, and she was just awesome, right? A couple of weeks later, it's Monday again. It's Monday. I asked her again, and she didn't say anything. But after, a few months, she says, so what are you trying to tell me? And I said, I'm not trying to tell you anything, but it's very apparent that you are deciding not to have good days on Monday. Why is that?
Because that's socially acceptable.
Yeah, well,
that's just the thing.
She didn't say anything. Right. So a couple of weeks later, I ran into her, and it was a Friday, and she kind of wanted to continue the conversation again. She was having a good day. And so finally I said, so let me ask you a question. I said, when you get up on Mondays, what's the first thing you say to yourself? She says, it's going to be a crappy day. Right. I said, so when you get up on Fridays, what's the first thing you say to yourself? She said, oh, it's going to be a great day. Right? And I said, what would happen if next Monday you got up and you said, it's going to be a great day? And she walked off. But then guess what? She started to turn around. So it was like almost every time I saw her, then I said, how are you today? She said, I'm having a pretty good day. Yeah, I'm having a pretty good day. And it was just, and never once did I say, you know what? You have a really bad attitude. Never once did I say that. I just gave her other options and showed her how, you know what? You can think one way on Friday, you can think another way on Monday, or you can decide, you know what? Every day is going to be a good day. I don't know about you, but I'd like to have good days more than 1/7 of my life. So the TGIF stuff. So that's kind of, and it took me a while. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. There was some times when I woke up and I was grumpy, and guess what? I was grumpy for the day.
The grumpy old man.
But then I'd look at it and go, today wasn't a very productive day, and I really don't like the way I was today, and I don't like the way I treated people today. I can do better. And so that's what I focused on. And now it's pretty much every day is an awesome day. I adopted that word awesome, and we talk about vocabulary. I started using it a lot. People, and because I thought about, and it's that thing, how are you today? How do we answer that? I mean, I've had people say, oh, I'm alive, and I really don't want to get into a conversation with that person at that moment. But I thought about how I answered the question. I would just usually say, fine, but there was no emotion. There was nothing behind it. So I thought, does vocabulary really matter? So people would ask me and say, how are you today? I say, I'm awesome, thank you. How are you? And this has been going on for years. And every email I send, at the end of it, I put thanks. You are awesome. And I type that.
I saw that.
I type that every time. It is not part of my signature. And why? Because it reminds me, but the feedback I get is amazing because it catches people by surprise.
And I felt awesome. I was like, yes, I am.
You are. And if anybody says otherwise, they have to answer to me. So, but it makes a difference to people. And now, barely a day goes by that I don't get a Facebook post, an email, a text where somebody saw something with the word awesome, and they send it to me and they say, I thought of you. Just the other day, somebody was walking their dog, and on the sidewalk, some kids with some sidewalk chalk had wrote the word awesome, and they snapped a picture of it, and they texted it to me and says, "Hey, I thought of you." And it's just from one word, changing fine to awesome, and not just saying, "Yeah, I'm awesome, thanks." It's feeling, "Yeah, I'm awesome today, thank you." And it affects me. It affects me, and the people around me love it. I mean, they just absolutely, the feedback I get is, "Thank you so much for being awesome every day," especially as a boss. My employees, and every year in my performance review, I hear that. My people appreciate that I come in a positive mood every day, no matter what's going on. We run a process every Thursday that generates between 35 and 55 million in revenue for our company. Okay, so it's a very important process. So even when that is not working well, okay, I'm not stressed about it. I go out and say, "Okay, let's take a look at this. What do we need to do to get this done? Make it happen." And it's always positive.
So changing some words, devil's advocate again. So changing some words and smiling. But like you said, it's changing your attitude and making choices on how you're going to react or respond and how you're going to be proactive in life. Exactly. That's amazing.
They're huge. I met Stephen Covey, gosh, it's been 15 years ago now. He was in Minneapolis, and I went, and he was doing a full-day course on the 8th habit, which is find your voice and help others to find theirs. Wonderful book.
Ooh, okay. Now I have like 3 books I need to read.
And then you can read my book too. It's called The Art of Being Awesome.
Or actually, I think it's 5 now because you mentioned Tony Robbins too.
Anyway, I had the opportunity to meet him, and there was about 250 people there that day, and they brought in box lunches for us. So I'd finished my lunch and I walked out to the lobby, and I was throwing this stuff away, and he come walking up, and all of a sudden it was just the two of us. And I stuck out my hand, I shook his hand, I said, "I want to thank you." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because the 7 habits truly have just completely changed my life, and I just want to thank you for that." And I thought that would be the end of the conversation, and it wasn't. He put his arm around me, and he took me off to the side. He says, "Tell me your story." Spent about 10 minutes talking to him, telling him. And then he looked at me and he said, "So which habit do you think is most important?" And I said, "For me, it's habit 1, be proactive." He says, "Why do you think that?" I says, "Well, if you master that, the successes you can have in the other 6 habits will be amazing." I says, "If you don't, you could have some successes in those other habits, but I don't think they'd be anywhere near the level of if you master habit 1. And he smiled. He says, "You get it." And then he put his arm around me again. He says, "What's your name?" I said, "Steven." He goes, "Great name." But it was a wonderful interchange. But the thing I got out of that, and this has been another huge thing in my life, is if someone like Stephen Covey can take 15 minutes out of his life to make me the most important person for that 15 minutes, okay, what do I need to learn from that? And it's one thing I always try to do is when there is somebody in front of me, if somebody walks in my office and I'm working on my computer and they come in, I give them, 100%. I'm there for them. And it's huge. But yes, you can. It's asking different questions. It's making different decisions. And it's taking that step back. When you find yourself in that negative situation, you take a step back and say, "Okay, what decision am I making now and why am I making it? What words am I using right now and why am I using those words? What better words could I use?" And just changing it. Maybe a little bit, and maybe you'll get some results, but don't always get set in the same pattern. It's the same way I talk about being positive. If you really want to have energy and be positive, move your body. It's so huge. If you think about somebody that's depressed, what are they? They're slumped. Their head is down, their shoulders are slumped. If you can just get them to move, guess what? You don't. It's impossible for your body to do both ways. And so, for me, we're dancing through the office all the time. If I'm lacking energy, and man, I'm cranking up the tunes, and we're dancing through the office.
I think I'm gonna have to come to your office.
Yeah.
And just get a feel for the environment, because that sounds like the perfect place to be. Like the morale is high.
Very high. It's a lot of people having a lot of fun. A lot of people that aren't afraid to make mistakes. A lot of people that just have wonderful ideas and just know how to run with those and make good things happen.
And that's a true leader.
Well, thank you. It's taken a lot of years to get there, but it's really been a great journey.
So go ahead and give us those shameless plugs. How do people work with you? How do they get an attitude adjustment?
They can go to my website and they can see some of the programs I have there. I just started a new program I'm starting in 2018. It's called Find Your Ps. And the Ps are passion, purpose, potential, and personal mission. I'm excited about that program. That's going to be more of a classroom type, one-on-one type things where I can work with people, one-on-one to help them figure out what their passions are, what their purpose in life is, and work on that personal mission. So I'm excited about that program. My website is awesomeattitude.net. My email is steven@awesomeattitude.net. My book, The Art of Being Awesome, is on Amazon, both paperback and Kindle version, so that's available out there as well. I'm working on my second book. It's called An Attitude of Service, and it's going to talk about servant leadership and
love that title.
And those distinctions that we talked about. And you want to know where I learned that? I used to perform at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, and some of the top magicians in the world perform there. And I discovered there are two types of magicians in the world. Magician A will get up, and the attitude will be, look at me, I'm a magician. I can do things that you can't. I'm special. Magician B will get up in front of the audience, and they're more of, let's have some fun together. Let's try this. Let's do that. And they were there for the audience. And that's kind of where I came up with an attitude of service. And we see that in everything. And we see that in speakers. You can tell if the speaker is there for you or if they're there just for themselves. We see that in leaders. We see that in politics all the time. So that book is going to be about servant leadership and those distinctions like we talked about between efficiency and effectiveness, difference between a manager and a leader and those types of things. And then the book after that will also be called An Attitude of Service, but I'll probably put an attitude of more service, and we'll take those servant leadership skills into the customer service realm. So those are the next two books I'm working on. So.
And when are those due? Do you have a due date, a release date?
I'm shooting for May for the first one. And then we'll see maybe about a year later for the second one, maybe a little shorter. We'll see.
Wow. This has been an amazing conversation. And like I said, your energy, even through the computer, is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for bringing out my best. You're a great host.
Thank you. Thank you. And please get in touch with Steven. And again, Steven is with a PH, not a V, but it's Steven, STEPHEN at awesomeattitude.net.
That's
Check
correct.
him out. Get yourself an attitude adjustment or find your purpose, passion, potential, and personal mission statement.
That's it. Yes.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did. Well done.
And he's available for speaking engagement. He's available to facilitate Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's available for magic tricks.
Absolutely.
And just all kinds of things. And I believe he will be a great person to sit down and talk to. Because just the attitude that I feel from him right now is amazing. So thank you so much, Stephen. Do you have a quote that you live by that you would like to share with the listeners?
I do. There's a lot of quotes that I love, but this is one of my favorites. It's also from Stephen Covey. And it is, if you want to make small changes in your life, work on your behaviors. If you want to make quantum leap changes, work on your paradigms. And that quote has guided me for many, many years now. When I really want to make some huge changes in my life, I need to work on my paradigms, not my behaviors.
So what does paradigms mean?
It's your belief system. We all have different paradigms about different things. So it's the way we see the world. And we do that. And if we're looking at something, here's how I see this situation. Well, that may be correct. It may not. But that's based on my experiences, what I've seen, what I've heard. That's what I believe. Well, if I want to make a change in my life, I can change my behavior. I might get some success. But if I change that paradigm about that situation, that's when you really get the huge changes.
So change your mind, change your world.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time. This has been great.
You've been listening to the Veteran Woman Podcast. If you want to connect with Airial and let her know what you thought of today's show, be sure to head over to www.theveteranwoman.com and follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @The Veteran Woman.